hi, remember my second channel? I'm currently uploading there a lot more frequently now, so if you are interested, consider subscribing. Link is always in the description. I greatly appreciate it. So the next handful of years are going to be a very interesting time for not only us as readers, but for Weekly Shonen Jump as a business. There is a handful of series that will be ending in the next couple of years, and it sounds pretty far away, right? But it usually creeps up pretty quickly, and before you know it, we're in the final arc, we're in the final chapters, and the story's gone. Some of the biggest ones currently, My Hero Academia, Black Clover, and potentially even Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, we don't really have dates for any of these. We have a hypothetical one for Kaisen, which is meant to be sometime next year, but all of this can be shifted around and prolonged, shortened, etc., etc. So you never really have a conclusive idea on when a story is ending, but we know that all of these series are very close to being finished. This brings up a very interesting conversation when it comes to Weekly Shonen Jump and successful stories in general. We're going to be losing a lot, some massive pillars, and normally stories would start to slowly replace. It's happened every single time. It's a repetitive cycle, so to speak. But the transition into this new era of manga and its indulgence, especially globally, has been a little bit different to what it was to the prior cycles. There is more competition now. Originally, Weekly Shonen Jump was the tried and true method to become famous, to become successful. If you wanted to be a prominent manga author within the industry where everyone would read your work, this is where you would want to go. Weekly Shonen Jump. And rightfully so, they have a lot of pride in that sense. They have created some of the most successful and popular series of all time. They have exploded the market further than anyone could ever expect. However, from our perspective, people that necessarily aren't within the industry, that aren't a part of that culture or that mindset, we usually see things a little bit differently. And a lot more problematic things come out to play with Weekly Shonen Jump and how their formula, how they run their business module is not as successful as it once was, nor is it healthy. The problem when it comes to this stuff is that we don't have specifics. We're not a part of this culture. We're not closely connected to the inner workings of this business module. And it somewhat boils down completely to speculation, but when you start to weave conversations from authors that either work within this field or talk out about their health and everything that's going on, it's not hard to put two and two together. Drawing a weekly story is a very difficult thing. Writing a weekly story is a very difficult thing. When you're combining those two things together, you guessed it, a very difficult thing. Now, of course, you can offset this with a lot of staff members and people to help you draw and potentially even write, but then it's just equally piled on with color pages, with cover pages, with other things that you have to do outside of just the chapter itself. And I'm sure you've noticed over the recent years a lot more authors taking breaks, a lot more authors releasing chapters that aren't up to the quality that they would like it to be. This is because the formula that is Weekly Shonen Jump is very archaic, it's severely outdated, and does not potentially take into consideration the health of their authors, the creativity, the freedom of their authors. It's one thing to be told how to write a story, forcing you to leave this character in or kill them off because the fans enjoy it, because these are popular characters. This can and will be a very aggravating thing, and a lot of editorial departments will have this leverage over their authors. But it's another to not be flexible with authors and their health. It's another to pile on work completely unrelated to the chapter itself in the form of multiple color pages and cover pages, potentially even artwork outside of it just connected to the story that you have to do. There's a reason why this module worked for so many years, is because there was never any competition. There was never any other way to indulge within manga other than the volumes, until suddenly we started to get more digital stuff. The transition to digital manga started to become a lot more prevalent, and while I believe it was at first very much frowned upon, not only the transition into digital manga, so the creation of it, but also the selling of digital manga was very frowned upon, it has proven in the very small handful of years that it has been active to be the most successful thing to come out from it, the most productive, the most healthy, the most liberating. Within the small amount of years that digital manga has been active, it has been highly profitable, highly successful, and it has managed to do a lot more to the industry than one could imagine. But first and foremost, the most important thing for its authors, giving full creative liberty, giving freedom of publishing. 1 chapter a week, 2 chapters a month, 1 chapter a month, 3 chapters a month. health and the care of it. Digital manga, specifically Jump Plus, has alleviated a lot of the problematic areas. It's probably not completely withdrawn or axed out entirely, but it's fixing a lot of those wrongs. Not only does it provide access to a global audience, not only can you translate those chapters to a litany of different languages and have it released at the same time as Japan getting it, you're also allowing your authors to be healthy while creatively building such a beautiful platform for the future, to expand upon it, to grow it into something else entirely, and it is indeed growing into something else entirely. Let me put it like this, right? Weekly Shonen Jump is losing some of the most successful series, and this isn't to knock the magazine. Once again, it has immortalized itself. It's reached an iconic status. It has created the fire that is the manga industry. But a lot of stories from Jump Plus, which is a digital-only magazine, has equally created very successful stories, and its future is currently looking a lot brighter than Weekly Shonen Jump's. You have a story like Danadan that's doing extremely well. You have Kaiji number 8 that broke records, that almost sold within the top 10 last year. Mind you, it has 50, 60 odd chapters and is only in a digital magazine. You have Spy X Family that is taking over the world, that sold within the top 10 last year. Again, only in a digital magazine, only 2 chapters a month. But on top of all of this, it's healthier. There seems to be so much more direct support for these authors and their health, because I see them taking breaks very frequently, and it doesn't matter because it's a digital magazine. It's not reliant on filling up a physical magazine with pages. This is what Weekly Shonen Jump is. It is a physical magazine. And even though they have digital counterparts, all of their stories being on digital platforms, they still hold the standards of the physical magazine to fill that book. And a lot of the time it's filled out with cover pages and color pages and all of these other things. Extra bits and pieces that take time. Writing a story is difficult weekly. Drawing a story is difficult weekly. Combining those together is unhealthy, and a lot of authors, I guarantee, will struggle. Even if you're a professional, even if you have a massive team, there is a sense of struggle there that just shouldn't be worked through, because it will directly affect your storytelling, and I guarantee you have noticed it. You might not want to admit it, you might hate to even think about it, but every one of our favorite stories has most likely been touched by this unhealthy mannerism that can't be controlled, that has been touched by burnout, that has been touched by being pushed to their limit. There is a plus side to this. As the improvement of digital magazines and Jump Plus in itself, I personally have noticed a somewhat different response from Weekly Shonen Jump. They seem more open and eligible to allow their authors a bit more time to rest. It would be very rare to see authors take a break, but now it seems like they're more forthcoming to the idea, not only because of the general reception and people wanting authors more breaks and more leniency and to stop piling on work so much, but also the back support of digital magazine helping that a lot more. That no longer is Weekly Shonen Jump the sole empire keeping up the manga industry and its relevancy, its popularity. There's stuff elsewhere that is competing with it very equally, that for some have a stronger catalog than what Weekly Shonen Jump is producing. And this isn't to compare both magazines in some rival of death. They're the same company, they're the same corporation, they're the same operation, but the way they go about their business is universally different. Kaizen took a big break off, which was amazing for Akatami. Black Clover is taking a handful of months off to prepare for the final arc. That's going to be amazing for that author too. There's a lot more leniency for these big breaks for authors to rest, to recoup, to find themselves once again. Unfortunately, within Weekly Shonen Jump's favor and how they value popularity, this is only a luxury for very popular authors. A young author just coming into the industry does not have this luxury because they're fighting to survive in this magazine. They're fighting to be popular, to be successful. This, I think, is a different problem in itself. This is a very cannibalistic magazine that has very high standards that they want to achieve. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what type of measurements they have for a series to be continued, for a series to be supported, because you'd have to look at so many different things on how much that can be influenced. A cover page could influence that. Them being placed somewhere specifically within the magazine itself could equate to them being successful successful or failing. There's so many things that isn't the story, that isn't the artwork, that isn't the artists themselves, that they have no control over, that mitigate some sort of response or reception to the story, to its success or to its failure. Does that make sense? Funny enough, you don't have those outside things in a digital magazine. Within Jump Plus, a story will live or die based on its artwork and storytelling alone. It doesn't matter where it's placed. It doesn't matter if it gets a color page or not. It doesn't matter if it's sandwiched between two massive stories or placed right at the back of the magazine. Does this grand picture slowly start to make sense a little bit more? Because I feel like I've done a rather poor job explaining it. I don't want to pit these magazines together. I don't want to say that Weekly Shonen Jump is wrong. All I care about is the health of authors and creating genuine stories. I want to read the story that the author wants to tell. And for the author to tell their story, to write it the way they want to, they have to be healthy. Editors can't have that much control over their work. Votes or popularity polls should not impede the decisions of the author on whether or not they should kill or keep a character around, in the fear of losing sales or losing traction or being cancelled or axed. I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm very thankful and happy for Jump Plus, for what they have done for the industry and how much they've improved things for authors. It's going to sound weird, but I'm also somewhat proud of Weekly Shonen Jump for taking very small steps to make their environment a lot more healthier, to give authors the breaks that they deserve, and to not pile on so much work. I don't expect a full rearrange of their module, of their business structure. I think that's impossible at this point. But to make up for that, I think Jump Plus is creating a space or environment almost as successful as Weekly Shonen Jump. With time, with more exposure, with the way they're handling being able to read the story and the marketing behind it, so much is going through that module. It is pushing a very, very bright future with very successful stories, with very healthy authors, and fully creative, free of any sort of difficulties that impede themselves outside of the story's own merit. The next handful of years are going to be interesting. We're losing a lot of popular things, but we're also gaining stuff. Both sides of the magazine are doing extremely well, but I can't help but feel that one doesn't have that bright of a future ahead of it unless it starts to change, unless it starts to evolve into something else, while another is building up its fame and popularity and has an incredibly strong catalog already that has a lot of advantages to it being digital, of course. At the end of the day, I am not Japanese. I do not know their business or their culture or what is right or wrong for them. All I know is that the health of authors should come first, always, so they can create the story that we all love to enjoy. Endtime. So with that, welcome to the end of the video. If you have made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you. I would love to know how you feel about Weekly Shonen Jump and the future of them. A lot of manga will be ending soon in the next handful of years, and of course things will replace it, but do you think something needs to change? Do you think they will ever change? Or do you think a place like Jump Plus will slowly start to overtower them, potentially even another magazine? Let me know in the comment section below. But with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.